You ever have one of those moments where you just know something is off, like your gut is screaming at you, but you don't have an explanation for why? That was me that night. I remember it clearly. Too clearly. It was about a week after my mom passed. I hadn't really left my house since, just trying to process everything. But that night, I had to. I needed a change of space, some fresh air, anything to clear my mind. My childhood friend Mike lived in a small village outside of town. I decided I'd go stay with him for a few days. To get there, I had to take 2 buses. The first one was fine, just a regular bus ride, nothing weird. But then, I arrived at this unfamiliar stop, a transfer point I'd never been to before. It was empty. No signs, no timetable, no indication of when the next bus would come. And worst of all, no signal on my phone. That's when an old man, maybe in his 60s, passed by me. He didn't stop, didn't slow down, just walked past, muttering under his breath. At first, I didn't catch what he said, but then he turned his head slightly and repeated, "Don't stay here. It's not safe." I froze. What? But he just kept walking, moving faster like he didn't want to be there any longer than he had to. Now, I don't scare easy. I told myself maybe he was just some paranoid local or someone trying to mess with me. But something about his voice, the way he said it, made my skin crawl. It wasn't a warning, it was a fact. I tried to shake it off and looked around. That's when I noticed her, a woman sitting on the bench at the stop. She was facing forward, hands folded on her lap, staring straight ahead. I figured she was waiting for the same bus as me, so I felt a little less uneasy. "Hey, do you know when the next bus is coming?" She didn't react, didn't move, didn't even blink. I cleared my throat and asked again. Still nothing. The silence felt wrong. It wasn't the normal, casual kind of silence. It was heavy, pressured, like the whole place was holding its breath. Then, out of nowhere, a bus sped past us. I barely caught a glimpse of it, but it didn't stop. It didn't even slow down. Just roared past like it didn't even register we were standing there. I turned back to the woman. "Do buses not stop here?" Half joking, trying to break the tension. This time she moved. Slowly she turned her head toward me. Her face looked odd, not in a way I could describe, but something was off. Her eyes were dark, and there was something about her expression, like she knew something I didn't. Then, she spoke. "There is no bus." Her voice was flat, emotionless. A chill ran down my spine. "What do you mean?" But she just turned her head back and stared forward again, like I wasn't even there. I don't know why, but I felt this deep, instinctive fear settle in my gut. Something was very wrong with this place, and somehow I knew I shouldn't be standing there. Then, I heard it, a sound in the distance, something that made my heart start pounding. A bus was coming. But this wasn't like the one that had passed before. This one looked old, the kind you'd see in movies from the 70s, with faded paint and rusted edges. Its headlights barely worked, flickering weakly as it rolled toward the stop. The woman stood up. Without hesitation, she stepped forward as the bus came to a stop. I wanted to ask her if this was the bus to the village, but something held me back. I watched as she stepped inside, and just before she disappeared through the doors, she turned and smiled at me. That smile, it wasn't friendly, it wasn't polite, it was wrong. The doors shut. The bus pulled away, and I was alone again. And then I realized I never saw a driver. A cold sweat broke out on my skin. I suddenly felt exposed, vulnerable, like something was watching me. I needed to leave. I needed to get away from that stop. But before I could move, I saw another set of headlights in the distance. A different bus, a modern one. And unlike the last one, this one had people inside. I shot out my hand, signaling for it to stop, and this time, it did. I let out a shaky breath as the doors opened, stepping inside without hesitation. The moment I sat down, I finally felt like I could breathe again. But that relief didn't last long. I sat there, trying to shake off the unease in my chest. But it wasn't that easy. Something about what just happened felt wrong. That woman, that old bus, the way she looked at me before stepping inside, and the fact that I never saw a driver. How the hell did I miss that? I needed to talk to someone, just to make sure I wasn't losing my mind. So I turned to the guy sitting next to me. He looked normal, probably in his late 40s, dressed casually, staring out the window like he had done this ride 100 times. "Hey," I said, forcing a small laugh to keep my voice steady. "That last bus stop, is there something weird about it?" The guy turned his head slowly, his expression unreadable. "Where'd you just get on?" "The transfer stop. The one before this." He stared at me for a second longer than was comfortable. Then, he exhaled and rubbed his face like he was debating something. Finally, he spoke. "You're lucky." That made my stomach drop. "Lucky how?" He hesitated before finally saying, "That stop. It's not supposed to exist anymore." "What do you mean?" He shifted in his seat, lowering his voice slightly. "Years ago, maybe 20, 25 years back, there was an accident there. A bad one. A late-night bus was on its last route, just a handful of passengers. No one knows exactly what happened, but the driver lost control. The bus went off the road and flipped into a ditch. Rescue teams didn't find them until morning. By then, it was too late. Everyone inside was dead. And here's the thing." He glanced at me like he wasn't sure he should say it, but he did. "They say the bodies were wrong." A lump formed in my throat. "Wrong how?" "The way they were found. The injuries didn't match the crash. Some of them, their faces were twisted, their hands covering their ears like they heard something before they died, and their eyes." He stopped, then shook his head. "Whatever they saw in those last moments, it wasn't the crash that killed them." I felt the hair on the back of my neck rise. They shut down that stop years later, but every now and then, people still end up there. No one knows how, but they do. And if you wait long enough, that bus shows up. "The old one," I said quietly, my mouth dry. He nodded. "People say it only takes one passenger at a time. And once you step on, you don't come back." I swallowed hard. "So the woman," his expression darkened. "If she got on, she's gone." A cold silence settled between us. I wanted to tell myself he was just messing with me, that this was some urban legend meant to scare people. But deep down, I knew it wasn't. Because I had seen it. That empty bus. The way she stepped inside without hesitation. That smile she gave me, like she already knew what was going to happen. The man sighed, shaking his head. "You did the right thing by not getting on." I exhaled slowly, nodding. "Yeah, guess I got lucky." But as I looked out the window at the dark road ahead, one thought kept gnawing at me. What if that woman wasn't just another passenger? What if she was something else? And worse, what if she was never alone on that bus?